This is a meeting of the RTM Parks and Recreation Committee on March 12th, 7:30 p.m. on Zoom. I'm going to call this meeting to order, and I'm going to call attendance. Patty Baumgardner.
Here.
Diane Conlog.
Here.
Cheryl Russell.
She must be having trouble. She was at the last, she was
Here.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I'm here.
Okay, Kelly Scallon.
Here.
Thanks. Penny Wilson, I think she told me she wasn't going to make it.
I just saw her.
Got in.
You did?
Yes.
Oh, you made it, Penny. Great.
Yeah, it popped me out. It said that the meeting.
That's okay. It's not a problem.
Okay.
We were bombed, so that's why everybody was popped out. Thank goodness for Mike.
Okay.
For Mike. Okay, so
Yeah.
you're here. Great.
Yeah.
I thought that was an old email that popped up on me. So Carrie Cardone, did you make it back in?
I can text her if you want.
Yeah, tell her to keep trying. I don't see her.
Yeah, I'll text her.
Okay. Because she was here. Adele. Sue Ellen.
I'm here.
Jean.
Here.
Andy. I didn't see Andy. Sandy.
Here.
Susan's here.
Here.
And Deb's here. And Bill's here. Okay. Verna Young.
Verna. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Verna Young resigned from the RTM, so she won't be joining us. I'm sorry to say. So let's get started. I think she'll get in soon.
So
All right.
sorry, Adele, I have to email Carrie the link again because she deleted
Okay.
the link. So it's going to take me a second. I'm not the most, I'll be right with you guys.
Oh, thank you. I can forward it to her
Do you
again.
want me to do it?
No, that's okay. I just need to go to my
Okay.
other screen. That's fine, you guys. I will,
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it.
And we think Andy is going to be absent.
Yes, we do. Because I haven't heard from him. Okay. All righty. Well, next on our agenda is review and discussion of Appendix B revisions, which is why we have Jack Davis and Frank Kemp with us. Frank is from TGSNA and Jack is his helper. And they've been working on this for a couple of years. And so here are the revisions. And I hope everybody read them. And I'll let Jack or Frank, whoever wants to start.
Frank, why don't you start, and then I'll pick up the review. All right, well, then I'll start. Appendix B started because I was doing something for F&B by assigning the various committees to determine who should be looking at what budgets. That included departments, boards, commissions, grants, outside groups. And then I decided, just to see if I could have some additional help, I went back to read the definitions for the RTM committees. And to be honest, they were wrong, so much so that I went and spoke to Seth and Frank, saying, Houston, we have a problem. They weren't just wrong in their definitions, they were actually had other parts of it that was not consistent with how we have been running the RTM for the last 20 years. So Frank and I started to go through it, and we actually came up with 5 types of changes that reflect the actual practice over the last 20 years. One of those are originally from 40 years ago, you could be on 2 RTM committees. We haven't had anybody on 2 RTM committees for over 30 years. So now we've just corrected that in the RTM. Another correction is for the 20 plus years I've been here, I've heard 3 different moderators say, is there any other committee that wants to report? Quite honestly, the existing code says only those committees that are assigned by rules can report. So we corrected that. The other thing is changed for clarification of prior code. The code is there. We just thought it needed a little extra weight. As I mentioned, descriptions of the standing committees were old, archaic, and just plain incorrect. The one that we like to mention is that all of us supposedly had decisions on personnel. We do not. And that the Public Works Committee had decisions on the incinerator, which, if you don't know where that was, take a look at the swap shop. There used to be an incinerator there that was shut down in the 80s, but that was still in the definition. We also are empowering standing committees for clarification of existing rights and powers. While Adele, Frank, and I are all on rules, Bill is as well, as is Patty. The fact of the matter is we're standing committee people. The heart and soul of the RTM of standing committees. And so in certain cases, we moved certain things back to the standing committees or exonerated what was going on. And there was one thing that was really just draconian, and the control of the standing committee should be rest with the standing committee itself. And so we deleted that from the new version. I'm not going to share my screen, but there were two documents. One was an introduction. And under the things that I just mentioned, under the introduction, it lists the 5 things and lists the part, the section, and what page number it is on the 11-page document. So if you only want to see what changed, if you only want to see what was draconian, it tells you where to find it. All right. Basically what we're doing now, and Frank will get into more detail, but we're trying to get this now moving forward. It has been gone for a while, but the way I like to describe it is this is something that's supposed to be standing for a while. It's not a Beaujolais. It's a better wine. So if it's taken us some time, so be it. So I just want to go through a couple of quick things to just give the example of what's going on. There is some duplicity here. So that in one of the sections before the committees, we do mention that you're responsible for doing certain financials, but on the same token, we also have that embedded in the definitions of the committees. And the reason is that you can lead a horse to water. I can't guarantee everyone's going to read the whole blooming thing. So people will read what their committee descriptions are, and so we want to make sure that it's there. For the Park and Rec, it's liaison with the Park and Rec Commission and other boards and commissions within their purview, including but not limited to following, monitoring, reporting, and recommending on the maintenance and operation of town parks, recreation facilities and programs, financial matters, and other areas defined. I also want to say this is not a Jack and Frank document. This has had input from 15 to 20 different individuals at various meetings and input that we have received in letters and emails. And it has this document that you are now reviewing was reviewed and edited by the TGS committee. It is their document. And TGS&A, once they do their final thing, will be bringing it to rules to be put onto the agenda. And it will be TGS&A presenting this document. So, based on that, that's pretty much covers it. We're asking people to give a quick turnaround. We basically need your responses by reading this by no later than the 17th, which is Monday. Maybe we'll take it Tuesday, but based upon what TGS&A has to do, they need to have it so that they can work on any or possible changes that have been made, modifications. There's some wordsmithing going on. And then they will review it on the 24th at their special meeting and take it from there. So I'm going to hand it back over to Frank because he can better tell you what TGS&A is doing than I am.
Well, thank you, Jack, for the introduction. The question has come up in, the process that we're in the middle of right now is to meet with all the standing committees, for example, this evening, A question that has come up is, has this been vetted by town council? The answer is yes. An earlier draft was gone over thoroughly by town council's office, paralegal who was really very thorough. And some grammar changes, grammar constructions were, and punctuation was straightened out. We submitted that this week to town council again, so for preview, so that when this comes before rules, and if rules decides to put it on the agenda, then Wayne's office won't be faced with an 11-page document to review in 2 days. So the review process continues among the standing committees. We've received some excellent suggestions, and we will bake those suggestions in to the meeting that TGS and I will have on the 24th in anticipation of having a nice finished document for rules on the 7th. I think we're ready to answer any questions that you have, and also encourage written questions after this meeting to Jack or myself, where we will be share them and position them for TGS and A's consideration at that meeting. I have to mute myself because I have a trouble with feedback here in the kitchen. So I'm here, but I'm going to.
Okay, if anyone that would like to speak, would you raise your hand? If I could see you. I don't see anybody raising their hand.
Patty and Cheryl.
Well, thank you, because I'm not seeing everybody. Now I'm seeing nobody. I'm loving this. I'm having so much fun.
We're showing Cheryl and Patty.
Okay. Cheryl.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I just have a question, and I always had it because it's still in the new revision and it was in the last revision. Financial matters. The Park and Rec Committee really has no financial matters. With the commission's budget, we don't add anything to it. Are you suggesting that we have more say in what they put in their budget, or are you saying that the financial matter means looking at and approving the budget?
Both. And how you work with each.
Yes. Yes.
How you work with each board and commission may be different based upon that commission or board's interaction. But, and it's not just because F&B, but some of the other committees, standing committees do actually discuss the budget before the budgets are controlled. But definitely, if nothing else, you look and opine on, that whole 4 words, monitoring, recording, analyzing, and reporting and recommending. Definitely you have comment on the capital projects that are coming out of the Park and Rec Commission, and looking at the budget. So if nothing else, those are the 2 things that we expect to be done. F&B will give a high level, but the detail for the various areas reside with the standing committees, not with F&B.
So,
I mean, you either are going to recommend the budget or you think it's not and make adjustments. You're not going to be able to increase it, but none of us can.
Right, we can increase it. But are you saying that we as RTM standing committees should have, let's say when the commission is going through their budget in November and December, which is difficult for RTM committees because we don't become a committee until after the election. And then we have a December meeting and the budgets are already handed in to the Board of Selectmen, or to the, not the Board of Selectmen, but to
The town administrator.
And so it's basically a done deal, or we work like from September to November in October with the commission. Are you giving us more say in a budget, whether it be Park and Rec or Public Works or something like that? Are we allowed to sit in with them when they do their budget? Because right now, we basically have nothing really to say. They do come. Jan came to the what was it, February meeting, Adele?
January.
And she
January, I thought, but yeah.
and went through the budget with us, and we asked our questions and everything else. But we don't, the budget's done. So
All right.
if we wanted to add something to the budget,
So
it
let
would
me do the first
done.
correction here. Standing committees have full authority until the Rules Committee assigns the members for the next standing committee. So you're still operating in November. That is something
Right.
that was recognized by Kate. It's recognized by Jen. It's recognized by Jay-Z. So there have been times, if you recall, Cheryl, you've been around. By the way, loved your comments at the Board of Selectmen the other day. The fact of the matter is that we have we've brought in fire engines, we've brought in other things from public health and safety and F&B, and those committees were still functioning until such time that your successor is announced. And, you know, if you're your own successor, fine, your committee still is alive. So I know we usually do it at the end of, you know, near the end of November when we all meet again. But up until that time, your committee, providing you're reelected or still in service, is still a functioning committee on that. And that's something that Kate and Jen strongly believe in, because that allows us to do business in November. So that's the first part. I just want to clarify. There's been some concern on what happens in November. Our committees are still functioning. All right. The second thing is, I can't tell you to go into the Park and Rec Commission and demand to participate. All right. But
Right.
what I know what they're trying to do with Public Works, I can speak to them, is that they're trying to meet with Ed in September to discuss what his main goals are going to be, some of the things that they're thinking about, so that they may have input into it. At the end of the day, you know, that final budget, unless you want to cut something, you don't have a lot to say on it. And I fully agree with that. But the key is to try and get influence or input into that when they're doing it. Now, knowing this committee and knowing how active you guys have always been on playgrounds, on park and rec issues and other things like that, you guys have been outstanding. You know, the fact of the matter is that I'm going to say 80% of the stuff, if not more, you really agree with what their goals and objectives.
Right.
So, you know, that's not a whole bunch of influence when everybody says, yeah, we all agree. But if there are other priorities that this committee feels are appropriate, you know, September, October is the time to start raising it to them. You know, before the horses left the barn. We're seeing that more. I was speaking to Education Committee the other day, and they're going to start to do that also. You know, F&B is a little bit tricky, but the fact of the matter is we are talking to the Board of Finance, the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Ed throughout the year, so that we have rough ideas of what their priorities are or how they want to handle certain things. But, you know, quite honestly, those who know me have known for the last 3 years, I've been saying we've been masking the real cost to run the town, not by gimmicks, because everything that we've done on the Board of Finance, I've supported, but we've been bonding certain things or using other sources to pay down to hit a mill rate change, when really I think that, you know, when the budgets are going up by 3%, debt's going up, maybe a 4% mill rate increase is exactly what it costs to run the town, and people should know that. So That's where I'm saying earlier.
Thank you, Jack.
You're welcome.
Patty picked right now to leave.
Oh, I will say something else from I know
There's
of members on
Patty.
this committee.
Okay.
This is not a committee that's shy of speaking out.
Okay, is that you,
I
Patty?
thought, I think that Patty had a question.
Okay,
no,
Frank.
I was just going to say, well, I reiterate exactly what Jack said. I would also say that was a good question by Cheryl. And one of the things I think this year, because we had a new Parks and Rec director, and she was learning in conjunction with Kate, and then when Kate left, Jen Charneski, things were pushed back a little bit in regards to the budgets and the Parks and Rec Commission. She actually did a phenomenal job, as we saw when she took us through almost 3 hours in our January meeting and had command of every line item, I thought, both in operating and capital. So that was great. But there's been years prior where we've started the process earlier. Adele has started the process, to her credit, reaching out to the Parks and Rec Commission, and even their walking, what do we call it, Adele? Our walking tours of the parks and beaches are earlier. And that's one of the things Jen said this year. In January, she said she really thinks that tour should be starting in like August or September. So I think to that point, what Cheryl was saying is, we all just want to continue to be involved in giving feedback as early as we can. And but I do think that we have made a difference. I think there's several times where we've asked them to add additional things or question things that we didn't think made sense, but particularly add additional things. So I think it's great. And the real reason I had also raised my hand prior to hearing them both speak was, as somebody who's been on rules and has been following the appendix, the go through year for a long time, and then actually sitting through one of the TGSNA meetings with Frank at length, these guys have done a really, really good, thorough job. And the fact that they're coming to each one of these committees on the RTM, asking for our feedback, asking for our input, I think is very valuable. So thank you.
Yeah, I will make a personal comment. Touring the parks in August is a heck of a lot better than touring Pear Tree Point and Weed Beach in the middle of winter with winds that could knock you over. So,
amen to that.
Amen.
That was quite an experience.
Yeah, it took me a week for my ears to feel their blood again.
Do we have another?
Do we have some other questions before?
Any other questions, folks? I'm not seeing any, Jack. I think we're okay.
Well, thank you for your time. I'm going to leave.
Thank you for your.
Okay.
And so we'll go have a good meeting. I know you're talking about budget again. I will tell you that meeting that you had, both of the members from F&B just couldn't stop speaking about how great of a meeting that was. So I really appreciate it for allowing members of my committee to participate. Again, thank you so much.
That was our pleasure. Thank you very much, guys.
Again, the door is open, wide open for comments by phone or email to us over the next couple of days, so that everybody can be, all these observations can be baked into the next draft, or the final draft of this. Good night.
Good night, Frank.
Adele, this is Mike. Let me just jump in for a minute. I have 8 people in the waiting room that I think are all
Bad
on our
actors.
last call. There's no members named Jeremy or Addison or Jerry Richards or George Stutzen that you're waiting, correct?
No. The only
Okay.
person, we're only missing one member, and that's Andy Millar.
Okay, I'll look for his name. I just want to make sure you weren't expecting Jeremy Ginsburg for some reason, so I'm not going to let any of these people in.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, guys, I think, are we all in sort of consensus that, that we're good with the revisions to Appendix B? Do I see nodding heads? Does anybody not feel that way? No. Okay, good. Thank you. I appreciate it. That's good for them. So we will move on.
Adele, do we need to take a sense of the meeting or?
That's what we just did.
By nodding?
Nodding.
Okay.
Yes, that's what it was. You know, then I asked anybody who didn't agree to say
Okay.
so, and they didn't. So I think that's what the sense of the meeting is.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. So when Jack had asked for responses by Monday, March 17th, does this count as our response then?
Yeah, yes, it can. He really what they're really looking for is if you have any revisions. That's what they're looking for. So if you have anything else, any other questions or any, you know, or if you don't agree that, you know, we all agree with it, then say so now. Okay, I lost whoever it was.
That was
Okay.
Jean. That was Jean who asked.
You okay, Jean? Yeah, he's looking for anyone to, for your minutes. Yeah, for anyone to, if they have any more revisions, that's the quick, to please contact them. Okay? But we have a sense of the meeting that we approve these. And they will come they will go to rules, and then it will come in its entirety to the full RTM for a vote. So, just so you know. But they're just hoping that they don't get 60 revisions on the floor of the RTM when it comes to the RTM for a vote. So that's what they're about. Okay. So next on the agenda is an update for the Board of Selectmen approved fiscal year 26 Park and Rec operating budget and capital improvements and the community and environment budget. Let me look at my papers for that. What I have is basically there've been no changes since last we talked to the operating and capital budget. The one thing that happened with the capital budget with the Board of Selectmen was that they asked that the walking trail be removed from the Weed Beach Meadow and Trail project. So the bid package is being rewritten and should be ready by April 1st, and it will be modified to include, in one instance, the walking trail, and then also to not have the walking trail, but with the necessary accessibility elements that they need, that they're required to have. So hopefully that will be ready by the 1st of April. That's what the plan is, from Weston and Sampson. And then after that, they will work on the pear tree bid documents. So that's what they said. So if anybody doesn't have any questions on those two budgets, I'd like to go. I sent you within the last couple of weeks the community and environment budget, because we don't really.
Adele, I have a question.
Sure.
Sorry.
Go.
You said when the Board of Selectmen were given the budget, they were given a $10 million price tag for pear tree. However, when I looked at the Board of Selectmen presenting the budget to the Board of Finance, they asked that it go back to the original of, I believe it was 6 million, maybe 600,000, something like that.
I think it was 6.9. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Did the Board of Finance last night, I wasn't available last night to watch their meeting, nor today. Did the Board of Finance discuss any of that?
No.
They didn't go over anything yet. Okay. So I think we really need to watch the Board of Finance, because if they cut that, you know, even $1 million or $2 million, we're going to be in a hole. and we're not going to be able to, I don't think, dig ourselves out of it. But I do think it's going to be more than $6 million because that was a quote from what, 2 years ago? So I think we need to watch what the Board of Finance is doing on that.
Yeah,
March 18th is the date that the Board of Finance is going to be reviewing the Parks and Rec budget, as well as the community and environmental budget. If you want to
The
mark
18th, Patty?
March 18th, that's where it
Yes.
stands. That's what they announced last night at the Board of Finance meeting. There's a chance that could change because that particular day has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 items on it. So if for some reason they decide it's too heavy, they could adjust it, but they might keep Parks and Rec and bounce something off. But the 18th is for both community environment and for Parks and Rec, which is what our committees follow.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. That's good to know. I didn't catch that. It certainly is not in the spreadsheet for the 6-year plan that's up on the town website. And the town website is still the numbers that it was before. So we'll see. Well, you're right. We have to pay attention to that. So moving on to the community and environment, just to go through it briefly.
Sorry, Adele, I'm so sorry. I'm just
Sure.
trying to follow along here. So what you had just commented on before this, that was about community and environment,
Not
correct?
yet. No, it wasn't. That was, she was stopping me before I moved on to, because she was talking about the capital projects. So that was the capital project, Park and Rec capital.
So your comment before about removing the walking trail from Wheat Beach, that was with
Capital.
regards to
The capital budget.
the capital budget.
Okay.
And Cheryl was talking about the capital budget with regards to Pear Tree Point.
Yes. Okay. Those are right. The 2 big ticket items that are still in there.
Thank you for doing these minutes, Jean.
Yes, God bless you. But they,
I'm taking notes too if you need
I'm
backup.
trying to keep up. There's a lot of verbiage I don't know yet. So
Yeah. And it'll be posted on Channel 79 tomorrow,
Yeah.
so I can help you with it too.
thank you.
no problem. And it doesn't have to be so detailed. Okay. So let's hit the community environment for the first time. I don't think we did it until the last minute last year, but the total for this year for community and environment is $157,898. And that has beautification and celebrations and community grants and the harbor master in there. The beautification, it's $34,600. And that hasn't changed, although it looks like it has on the spreadsheet I gave you. That's what they asked for. So that hasn't been. There's no reduction to the beautification budget. What the difference is that I believe that's where the trees came from, where they moved into capital. That's the $5,000 difference, I think. So that we're under celebrations and community grants. The first line is contractual services. And what that actually is, that's the monument and ceremonies budget for $21,910. And there was an adjustment in that from what their original request, but I believe that they reduced it $2,965. But I believe that was just because of the 250th anniversary celebration that won't occur until the following year. I think that's what they took those funds out for. But that was the only adjustment there. And in addition, for interesting, to note about monument and ceremonies, I noticed at the selectmen's meeting on the 3rd of February, the selectmen voted to authorize an application for neglected cemeteries grant, so that the first selectman could be authorized to take care of that. So that's good. I don't know the dollars, and I'm not sure that they know the dollars either of what they would get, but at least they're applying for it, which is great. And then there's various other grants that are under celebrations and community grants. There's Holiday Lights and the Museum of Darien and the Depot and Kids in Crisis. That really is not our bailiwick, but they're in there. And then the Harbor Master is 3,300. And I think that basically is for the buoys that he's in charge of replacing and fixing and putting out, et cetera. So that's community and environment. Any questions or comments? Okay.
No, I'll just say that great, thank you. And then if you get the chance, if you haven't watched the Board of Selectmen meeting, I recommend for our committee to watch it since we follow beautification. They did a really excellent presentation on gardens, the 17 gardens they were focusing in on around Darien. And they were proposing 5 to get money, some additional. Let me rephrase this. They were proposing 5 to really clean up and do. And they were doing it with Eastern Land, I think it was ELS, Eastern Land Management, or ELM. And in the end, the prices were a little bit higher, so they lowered it to 3. And I don't want to take away from it. Her name was Sarah, so I don't know if she was the chair of beautification, but she did an excellent job. One is going to, so my point being, there's going to be a lot going on in beautification. And it sounded like if they needed additional money, Jay-Z in the Board of Selectmen felt that they would be able to find them a little bit of additional money if they needed to do that. So just want to give you that update.
Okay. Okay. All right. So that's all I have on that section of the budget. And as Patty has said, March 18th is when we need to pay attention to the Board of Finance meeting. And then they will vote either on the April 3rd or April 8th on the budget. Okay, I think that's all I have on that. Okay, so updates on the Park and Rec Commission advisory committees and the town committees and commissions. The first one on the list that I listed, and of course I left beautification off the list. I love that. I always leave at least one off the list so that when I type it up, is the Arboreal and Landscape Enhancement Advisory Committee, which at their last meeting, the commission closed a number of their working groups or advisory committees. And so now this is the only advisory group that they have going forward this year. And what they've done is sort of combined invasives and the Cherry Lawn Community Gardens group. And the idea is to identify areas of concern and prioritize use of resources for new plantings and replacement plans. So, and I think it's going to be, they mentioned having several master gardeners on the list and a couple of commissioners and a representative from the garden, but they haven't finalized all those things. But that's the only one going forward. There was a robust discussion at the commission meeting about pickleball, and because they decided they did not need a racket committee, but rather that the whole commission would serve as a committee on pickleball. And the discussion wound around buying perhaps, I don't know how you describe it really, a conversion system where you can lay down a, put some, well, I don't know if they're mats or if it's wood or exactly what it is they're going to do. But anyway, they convert paddle tennis courts to pickleball courts, and it's temporary, and you take it up. So the idea would be to use some of the paddle courts down at Weed Beach, in the off season when it's not paddle season. And since we have 6 paddle courts, if they were thinking about using 2 of those courts. So they had a price on when they discussed this last, the system just didn't seem, I think, that good. This seemed better. It's a different system. And so they were looking into it because it looked like it cost about $8,500 per court. So the question was how you pay for it. So it was either sort of they were talking about fundraising, or perhaps I will say that John Zagrodzky was in the audience and he piped up and said, well, maybe we could get it into this year's budget. I don't know where that has gone, but at any rate, they did. They certainly talked about it, though they decided they did not need an advisory group. So having said that, does anybody else have any updates from the different groups that you're following? Speak up, because it's hard for me to see you on this tiny little phone.
Adele, I'll just say, Coastal Waters still has not met since November. They do not have enough members even to meet if they were to meet. So there's no update other than that.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I'm seeing none. How about Great Island? Patty was had requested to follow Great Island, and so no, I would ask her to sort of update us on Great Island.
Yeah, I'll just give a kind of a quick overview since we went through so much on Appendix B. And so this way it saves you from, well, no, I encourage, let me rephrase it. I encourage everyone to watch the Great Island Committee like Adele and I did, but they go on for 3+ hours. So if you do it, maybe grab a bottle of wine or something to it. But it's very helpful, and it's wonderful, all the hard work that they've put in to it. So just, kind of a quick update is they're moving along on Great Island. They had their most recent engagement. It's now been, I think it's 2 weeks, where they had a large number of people attend. It was held in Town Hall, and it was an engagement. So this was the first one they did that it wasn't on the island. The first and second one were on the island. This was because of the weather, and they just didn't want, we went through some really cold and ice. They didn't want anybody slipping, so they had planned this one to be inside. So they had poster boards up. They answered a lot of questions. They had great engagement, and then they had a breakout session afterwards for kids with like a little scavenger hunt and things like that. And then they launched that survey. So that survey from the third workshop is out right now, and they encourage everyone to participate, whether you went on the third workshop or not, because what they're doing is they're building on the feedback that they've gotten from the first and the second survey. So they're tightening up the questions. And so you'll see more questions kind of tied around parking, for example. And one person gave, this is separate from GI, but I watched John Zagrodzky talked about how one person was questioning why there was so much focus on parking versus just environmental thing. And his response was, well, if you look at all the results from the survey, an overwhelming amount of people said, we want to be able to get on the island. Many of us are fit and able to do it, but it's still a long walk from Pear Tree. But there's others that are not ably bodied to be able to walk on. So we need to walk all the way down there. We need to figure out a parking. So that's why there's been some focus on the parking. And then there's been focus on the existing buildings. And the second survey was really asking a lot about, which buildings do you which buildings basically are you drawn to? What would you like to see there? Which buildings are not as important to you? And they had given background on all of that. So they'll be taking that information and working with it and formulating, more information. And basically they're moving along the master plan and they're preparing cost estimates based on different options. But for anybody who feels that they, are not getting not being able to give enough input. John Zagorowski at the Board of Selectmen meeting and the people on the GIAC all said, please, you can fill out the survey, but also send them emails and give them your input, that this is a particularly important time right now from basically, March through May. Because once we get that, then they're doing these cost estimates, they're tightening it up. And then what you're going to have is we're in the vision plan stage, but you're going to see the master strategy plan will come out in July. Let me see what else. Also, the GIAC had voted on some rules, including allowing the dogs that are now allowed to walk with their humans on the just on the path, on the black walkway driveway path. They had voted at the GIAC to allow them to come off the driveway, so to speak, the walking driveway, and have a little bit more access to the rest of the island. Of course, they have to be on leash, and that was emphasized. At that meeting, the GIAC, they had voted on a March 31st date. And so what I want to give as a follow-up is, if you've watched the Board of Selectmen meeting on Monday, so basically the GIAC voted on it and it passed. It was a 5-4 vote, so it wasn't a unanimous vote. So to be clear, and there was a lot of discussion around it, but it had passed, and it had passed with that date of March 31st. There were still restrictions. You can't go on the bridle trail. You can't go by the Eagle's Nest, etc., and all of that. But at the Board of Selectmen's meeting on Monday, they're really the ones, they're our governing and voting body. We're our governing body for the RTM, but they are the ones making the decision on this. They discussed it at length on Monday night, and one member did not support it when they started with the discussion, but 4 others did. However, 2 of them had concerns about having enough time to educate dog owners about enough time to educate them on where they can go and where they can't go in this additional, you're now allowed off just the black pavement driveway. And so, and also enforcement. There really hasn't been it was noted that there wasn't, they just recently hired a new animal control officer. When I say recently, I don't know when she was hired. Maybe it was a month or 2. She's had to cover a lot of Darien and just kind of getting up to speed. But she hasn't been there to really enforce it. So what the compromise was that they all voted then unanimously to support the GIAC's decision. And what 2 of the selectmen said was they didn't think it was their place to, relitigate what the GIAC had decided and voted on. However, they made basically like an amendment to push back the date, because it was going to start March 31st, and they felt like that was, most of them agreed that it needed more time. And so as of now, the dogs need to stay on the path with their owners until June 1st, and that will, instead of March 31st, and that will give several months to educate the public on where you can go, what you can't do, what you can do, what you can't do. Dogs have to be on leash all the time. You got to pick up. You can't go in the Eagle's Nest, etc. And then the other thing that was recommended was June 1st is the date where the dog licensing renewals start, on June 1st. So a lot of people go into town hall on that date, or they either send in for the renewals or they just go and pick it up themselves. And something that Krista McNamara and the folks in town hall do is they give them, you pay, you get your little tag, and then they have a 1-sheeter with like the, doggy do's and don'ts, the things you can do and things you can't within the parks and the, and beaches in town. So they can now add that for Great Island. So the timing of that, seems very smart. And there was also a suggestion that perhaps we have a policeman there on June 1st, right at the gate, kind of when you first walk in, saying, you know, hi, welcome to Great Island. If for the people, anybody who's walking with a dog, hi, welcome. We can say welcome to anybody, but hi, welcome to Great Island. And if they have a dog, to hand them the rules, you know, or remind them what the rules are, but to also check their dog license to make sure that they're licensed. And if they just haven't renewed yet, because it's June 1st, to encourage them, hey, don't forget to go to town hall on Monday. So, because I believe June 1st is a Sunday. Yeah. So that's my update on GIAC. There was a lot of environmental talk as well, but the main thing is that they're taking all of the feedback and they're going to be starting to work on drawings and suggestions for the overall master plan. So if you got feedback to give on those buildings, what you want to see, what you don't want to see, you want weddings, you don't want weddings, you don't want the big building done, redone, you don't want it touched, now's the time to give it. Thank you.
Thanks, Patty.
Sure.
I will add, I've heard from Lori Bora that the lawsuit for the entrance, the roadway construction, actually went to court last week. And so it's with the judge now. And so he has 120 days to respond.
Yeah, they said that at the Board of Selectmen meeting on Monday. They have 120 days, and I think it's two suits, right?
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else?
I'm sorry, just a quick question. This is Debbie. Are only Darien residents allowed? Because why would you be checking for dog licenses for Darien? If I thought anyone can go on there or just only residents?
Anyone can go, but it's an enforcement. It's a first step towards it's not a first step. It's one of the multiple steps for enforcement as we're opening the island, as the selectmen are opening the island to more people, more Darien residents, more people. Just these are the rules that you follow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Cheryl?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about Great Island. Do you want me to do it now or do you want to wait till the end?
No, Great Island, we're on it now.
Okay. I listened to the Board of Selectmen meeting on the other night, Monday night, and I had no intentions of speaking whatsoever. But Lois Schneider came up with some very interesting points about Great Island and dogs on Great Island. And I want to make sure everybody understands I am a dog lover. I've had dogs and I've had grand dogs, so I've done it all. I just think that there's a place for dogs and there's a place for elderly, there's a place for handicapped, there's a place for people all to join together. But I think they also could be separated. And when I heard that there were 49 people with dogs on the bridle trail and 14 of them were off leash, and then 2 were off leash in the area of the Eagle's Nest, I was very disheartened to think that people cannot read rules and regulations. But then again, it happens in all our parks, and that's basically what Lois said and what I said. And I think that we need to really look at this. I mean, we've had an animal control officer in this town for a zillion years. Just because we didn't have one for a few months doesn't make it all right for everybody to drop the rules and regulations and run around like crazy people with their dogs off leash. And we only have one, and we may have to hire somebody else after that person goes off duty. Jay-Z said that they leave at 3:30 and they don't work on weekends. And we all know what our beaches look like before the guard gets there. And even during the summer when at Pear Tree, because people are allowed to park there. Now, in the summertime, after May 31st, they have to have a beach sticker to get into the beach. So those are Darien residents. However, when we stop in before March 31st and after Labor Day, anyone from any town can go to Great Island or any of our parks. And they can bring their dog into Pear Tree, which says no dogs allowed. And they let them off leash after they've walked through wherever, around the circle or in Great Island or whatever. So when they said that, there were thousands of people going to Great Island, not all of them are Darien residents. They're from out of town. And if they don't abide by our rules, maybe we should make this park strictly, excuse me, for Darien residents. Maybe we need to take a good hard look at what our money is going to and how we can figure out where we stop people from coming into our park. Excuse me. Anyway, I mentioned that maybe we need to have they talked about another fine and putting up a fine of more money than $25. And I remember when Chip, I don't have any water with me, I'm sorry. When Chip came to the commission meeting or one of our meetings, and he said he's given out tickets for $25, but when they went to court, the judge threw it out. So I mentioned on Sunday night, out of the clear blue, maybe we should have a $200 fine. Maybe it needs to be a big, strong fine, and maybe then the courts would appreciate it and let it go through, and these people would end up paying that are not abiding by our rules and regulations. So my question, Adele, I haven't had a chance to look into this, but what if because the commission really writes the ordinances, I understand that, but we also write ordinances. What if we write an ordinance for all our parks? I don't know how you all feel about $200, $175, $250, whatever, and present it to the commission and get this ball moving. Monica said it at the Great Island Committee meeting that they need to start working on an ordinance and up the fines. But I think that in this day and age, people that get a fine of $50 think nothing of it and probably don't even pay it. So I'm thinking of a high fine for anybody that has a dog off leash. First off, it's a state statute. It's a state law to keep your dogs on a leash. It's not just a Darien rules and regulations. It's a state law. So just to keep your dogs on a leash and them go in other areas where they're not allowed they should get a high fine. I mean, we only have one animal control officer, and we've got 9 parks. This is a lot of work for one person, but I just like to throw it out there and see how everybody feels about maybe us moving forward with this and mentioning it at the commission meeting to see where they stand as to how quickly they could get an ordinance on the books.
Okay. Susan.
Cheryl, I listened to the meeting also, and I think we have the enforcement is one issue, and then the fine is another issue, because we can do all we want with, an ordinance increasing it, but unless we have some personnel at every single park and Great Island monitoring it, and I don't think that's realistic. We know there are a certain amount there are many people in this town that follow all the rules, but then we always kind of focus on the handful that don't. And I understand that. I'm a dog owner. I walk Great Island quite a bit, not with my dog because she can't walk that. But I don't see the purpose of the ordinance without the enforcement, and I don't financially know how the town could justify hiring someone unless you do it at every gate. And it's not just going to be Great Island, it would be at every park. So I appreciate that, you know, the fine is very small. I don't think by increasing the fine will get rid of the problem. I personally, you know, yes, there were a handful of dogs that were on off leash at Great Island, but you know, compared to every town that you go to, some people follow the rules, some people don't. And even if we have, if we up the fine, if we don't have someone there constantly giving out tickets, what's the point? I don't understand that. And I, for one, don't think at this point in time I could justify hiring another body to monitor dogs. I think we have so much bigger issues in this town. We have so many more financial things that are drawing us, that to focus on dogs. And again, I apologize if anyone out there has ever been, you know, chased by a dog or whatever. I certainly empathize with that. I mean, you know, I can't wait for them to get some type of parking on that island, because I'm more concerned right now, the fact that many elderly people, many handicapped people, people that are on crutches, they can't even do what I do. I'm blessed that I can walk there. So we're so focused on dogs. I think we need to focus on figuring out how we get more people, whether they're in town, out of town, whatever. There's so many people that have never even seen that property because they can't even if they parked at Harbor, they can't walk all the way up there. So that's my 2 cents. It's about enforcement. And if we're not going to figure out how we do it, then I don't see a point in going through all the stuff to do a new ordinance. But that's my 2 cents.
Hang on.
Susan, I agree with you, Susan, on getting more people and more parking up there. I'm one of the ones that can't walk, and I haven't been up there since they first were going to buy this island. I do think that by having a stiffer fine, that it would send a message, and it gives the animal control officer more power. And I don't really want to see Great Island turn into Woodland Park, because Woodland Park is a disaster with dogs. Ask anybody that lives around there. And I don't want to see that happen. And I'm sure it won't, because it's more of an open park than a wooded park like Woodland Park. But I think it gives her more power to and give the ticket. I mean, when Chip went into Woodland Park, everybody texted everybody that they knew that was in there and said, Chip's in here, and they put their dogs on a leash. I mean, it gives the animal control officer the power to give the ticket, to write the ticket and give the fine, and let the judge handle it from there.
Okay,
but it
sure.
sends a message.
Yeah, sure. I just want to just say that in the rules and access requirements that they were voting on it, that came from the committee and went to the Board of Selectmen. At the bottom of it, it does say this. It says violations of any of the above rules shall be penalized and may subject the violator to a mandatory fine between $25 to $250. And or civil summons, depending on the severity and circumstances of the violation. So the larger number is in there. Now, Bill's been trying to say something. So, Bill?
I just want to say that I believe Cheryl is right, that if you have a high fine, it isn't that the officer has to stay there 24/7 or at any of the parks. It's just that 1 or 2 times they hear about people getting fined a couple $100, maybe they'll think twice about it.
Okie doke. Anybody else? Seeing none, it's Seth would, okay. Carrie? Oh, you muted yourself. You're mute. There you go.
Sorry.
and it maybe I just don't know the answer to this question. How, when if somebody's walking their dog, they don't always have their license or whatever, how does how do they enforce it and know that the person's giving their right name or whatever? I mean, do they look at the dog license, or
Yes.
how does that work?
I don't think they,
Sorry, I just don't know.
I can answer that, Carrie. I don't think, I was just telling you a suggestion that was mentioned at the Board of Selectmen meeting. I don't think there's an officer walking around checking people's dog tags unless there is an incident, if something happened at Woodland or something like that. But no, they were just trying to say, hey, this is a good way. Hey, just a reminder, have your dog license updated, and here's the rules. That's what the Board of Selectmen was talking about on Monday.
When the guys get, or when they're out, for real, like just in general, anywhere, how does one get the ticket? Like, how do they know that it's you? Or
Does the dog have a tag on them?
Yes.
Yes. The dog is supposed to have a
Yeah.
dog tag on them
Okay.
around their
So
neck.
that's how they would.
Okay. So the dog is almost given a fine.
No, the owner is responsible for the dog.
But
That was a joke.
Or
That was a joke.
maybe we don't realize it, but it's the dog that's really responsible, and he's just a sucker for the human.
Okay. Is there anybody else with a comment?
I hope not.
Penny?
I just have a quick one, which is it might be interesting just to find out what the neighboring towns do. Like, for instance, I know obviously hard to compare ourselves to Stanford, but at Myannis, I think it used to be like $100 fine, and they obviously had many more people to enforce it. But I just, I think it might be interesting to see, over at Waveney, how do they manage things, or, and I don't know who wants, who can do the legwork or how that might transpire, but I just think it could be an interesting thing to inform us in terms of how things are managed with people and their dogs in this situation. So
Thank
just
you.
a thought.
Good. It is a good thought. Anyone else?
I do, Adele. I'd like to say a few things. As you astutely pointed out, fines are already written into the document that you just read to us. So I'm not exactly clear on why we're taking time to talk about fines when they're already on the books, so to speak. And secondly, I do agree, if the town makes a law, whether it's speeding, whatever it is, yes, we of course should follow it. We should. And finally, I do believe that what is the percentage of dog owners in this town? Do we know?
There are approximately 2,500 dog licenses issued by the town clerk's office, to my understanding. If that is true, then you could hypothetically say that there is about 5,000 registered voters. And there are about 14,000 registered voters in town. So you have 5,000 with dogs. Whether all of them want dogs on Great Island or not, I have no idea. But some people who do have dogs don't think they should be on Great Island. Many people who do have dogs verbally say they want dogs wherever they want to go, including Great Island. I think we should have one park where maybe there aren't any dogs, and there might be a lot of people that would appreciate it besides the dog owners who are objecting.
Right. I understand that, but respectfully disagree with that. I think, well, I will say that I think we have bigger fish to fry. I will side with Susan on this one, that we really do need to work on getting people to that park. That is of utmost importance considering the amount of money we have spent as a town on that property. So I do believe that it's in the town's best interest to get as many of its residents to to have access to the park. And you know, we have rules on the books for the dogs. Dogs should be allowed at that park, in my opinion, and follow the rules, have them on the leash, or create a special section for the dogs to be in a special dog park. But that's my point of view on that.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, I think we're gonna, I'm sure we will be revisiting this discussion in the future. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the chairman's report, which is short. Aren't you glad?
Yes.
Very quickly. I took a ride over and had a look at the Baker playground today, and they have made some progress since last I reported to you in January, but it's not finished for sure. It still has tape on it that's sort of fallen down. I think there's still some site work to do. They seem to have spread the mulch, but the sidewalk, obviously the sidewalk's not done yet. And I don't think they have quite all the elements in, but it's on its way. And it's really exciting. And the other bit is Holohan backstop, which I took a ride over and had a look at. Looks to me like it's done. It looks great.
Mhm.
So that is a real plus.
Looks great.
Yeah, it does. It really
Thank you
does.
for the ARPA money.
Yeah, and thank you for the suggestion to use the ARPA money that way. The other little tidbit was, let's see, Lori's away for the next commission meeting, so Jim Farrell will be chairing the meeting in March. And also the commission approved at their last meeting the Little League request to display local merchants banners on the outfield fence as a source of revenue. And there will be a commissioner that will assist with the vetting of the sponsors. And so it looks like that's going forward. They voted in favor of that. The only other thing is I was looking through as Jack says, if you read the financial stuff that's at the I think it was at the Board of Finance, the Jen Charneski, there's a lot of spreadsheets, and it really keeps you up to date on the numbers in town. And one of the things that's in there is the projects that are closed and projects that remain open. And I was interested to see on the projects that remain open, which include, the Weed Beach Meadow and Trail and Pear Tree. Also in there was the repair of the Nature Center driveway. And that was $75,000 that was a capital request. It was from last year. And so it turns out that the Nature Center patched their own driveway. And so right now I'm not exactly sure who is doing the investigating, but they're being looking at whether they need any more patching done. And barring that, they're looking perhaps to reassign those funds to Cherry Lawn Traffic Study, reviewing and revising proposals for the study. So that's kind of where that was. I didn't know that, so I thought that was an interesting piece of information you guys might like to hear. And with that, that's all I have for a chairman's report. We have minutes to approve from January 22nd that were fantastic. And so do I have any additions or corrections to the minutes from January 22nd?
Well done, Jean. Thank you.
Yeah, wow.
Thank you.
Big time, thank you. That's the bear of the year. So I appreciate it, totally. Okay, may I have a motion then to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Cheryl, actually, I saw Cheryl's hand first. Who's the other second?
I heard Diane.
Okay, Diane, second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Whoops. That's okay. We're still there. Okay, so that's unanimous in favor of the minutes from January 22nd. Is there any new business that we haven't gotten to? Carrie?
Is it all right if I bring up the suggestion that I made, even though you said I should talk to the commission about this?
Sure.
So I've got a daughter who's now in the process of looking for a summer job.
Oh,
And
right, yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
And so my husband was telling her that the town really needs lifeguards. And I know they've been desperate for a couple of years, but I don't know if anybody's looked at it for their kids, but to be certified as a lifeguard, it's both costly and time consuming. Like it can take up an entire weekend, and the cost is sometimes like $500 depending on where you go. So when you factor in how much you might make for the year, there are some kids that really need that money, and then you factor out the $500 and they got to work a bunch of hours to get that. And so I was just wondering to encourage people to become lifeguards if perhaps the Park and Rec Commission might want to hold something like like the certification that might be a little bit more cost effective for kids. I don't know if anybody's got any other ideas about that or anything. I think it's not just for my daughter, but for other people.
How long does the certification last for, can I ask?
2 years.
And then does anyone happen to know, because I know some people, like some of the high schoolers do that post 53 program. I believe that they also do some training. I'm not sure how expensive it is, but it might be something to ask about if there's some sort of like group certification class that they do that maybe we could mimic, because I think that that's a really good point and a really good idea, especially if it's something that they have to renew every 2 years in order to make it worthwhile. But I do definitely think that the training is really important, obviously, because all of our children and we're there. And you never know what will happen, but just another resource to look at to mimic potentially. I don't know if they have anything, but just something to inquire about.
Yeah, I have no idea. So Adele suggested I talk to the commission about that. And
I certainly can pass that thought along, Carrie.
yeah, again, because I know they've been short, there's been a lifeguard shortage for a number of years.
Cheryl, do you know how many Cheryl, I'm sorry, Adele, do you know how many lifeguards we have in total, like Pear Tree and Adele?
It's written down somewhere, but no, I don't know.
Do we have a ballpark, anybody?
And 20, what did you say, 20, 24? Sandy, do you have knowledge?
I'm just saying that you might want to contact the high school, because I know when Marge Trefone was doing the swim team, I think she used to do a lot of training for all the swim team members, because it's not just the beaches, it's also the private clubs that need the lifeguards.
Yeah, and in fact, though, when my daughter was in high school and we tried to get in that, she sells it out almost like instantaneously. So unless really you've got a connection with her, chances are you might not get in. So because she's the best deal in town. So anyway, I think hers is a little bit cheaper, but again, you've got to really have the connection, and most college kids are not home when she holds the
right. So we'll pass this. Diane, did you want to say something?
No.
You good? Okay. Anybody else? I'm just scrolling through. Okay, guys. Well, I'll definitely pass the thoughts along, and also find out a little bit more. I think we do the training, but I would be willing to bet that we don't do it ourselves, that we hire somebody to do it. There, and so. But I can find out a little bit more about that too. Okay. All righty. So may I have a motion to adjourn? Any other new business? No? Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn? Cheryl moves. And Penny seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hey,
Aye. Thanks a lot, guys. We had a new and different experience tonight with the bomb. Okay. And they want it back in. There you go. Thank you. All I can say is that I know that it happened to the Great Island Advisory Group, and they were in 206, and so they had the big screens. Evidently, it was quite something. So anyway, with that, I'll say good night.
Night,
Grace.
Nice, thank